Hello, Music Multiverse listeners, and welcome back to Beyond Your Radio. This is Unknown Sundays, and it's time to talk about another band, artist, or something in the Music Multiverse that might be relatively unknown, missed, that our watchers, our collectors, listeners to the show might be interested in, a rabbit hole to go down in the past, the present. If this is your first time here, welcome to the show. This is an extension of our article sections on beyondyourradio.com. So if you want the full detail written there by me, it's there as well for you, along with some links that are related to today. If you're working toward expanding your listening capabilities, the genres you get into, this is one of the more difficult. But before we get into that, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so. The idea here is to expand that, to get you into other new music. May not always happen, but we want you to experience that, and there's no other channel on the internet or YouTube that does this kind of thing. Please feel free to leave a comment. I always respond to anyone and everyone. Love the banter, love the suggestions and everyone's comments. Of course, if you like what we're doing, hit the thumbs up button. This Unknown Sunday 2025 is a new, adventurously different rabbit hole and experience that I just recently took after a rather, cheap shit purchase. Geez, I wonder who says that. Of a vinyl record based only on one thing. Well, let's make that two things. The first was the cover. And here it is. This is, look at that, kind of spacey, obviously I didn't know what the inside would be like, etc., but we'll get into that. Second part was the description given that seemed to be, kind of making a case for it as an orchestrated opera of sorts in the dark spaces of symphonic metal, gothic rock, and even in the edges and blackness of orchestrated use of coarse vocals. Wait a minute. So should I be expecting like this Michael Kamen meets Static X kind of thing, or maybe Eisenhahn, or that of Alexander Desplat playing with Michael Agerfeldt of Opeth? Maybe. Apparently, in actuality, it wasn't going to matter much to me. I figured here's a great looking album cover, an interesting hook of something that I will have truly never experienced, and what seemed to be an invitation of a who's who in this mixed black metal, dark progressive rock. Something my knowledge of this is extremely limited. Now, I will say that this is not what I expected, because when I saw the price, kind of thought it would have been a CD. So take that with a little grain of salt as we move forward on this particular Unknown Sunday. I haven't bought much from France. Not that much that I'm aware of, really, except Gojira, of course, and Escobar, and some others that have fallen in there. But so I forewent the chance to play a track or two. I didn't go into my service and stream it. I said, this is just something you're going to take a chance on. So I went right into the purchase and shipment of Melted Space on Unknown Sunday 2025. Shall I start by stating that I have seen Turandot, since we're talking about opera. I've heard and seen the video for Paradise by the Dashboard Lights. I guess that's a operatic kind of song. I mean, hell, Meatloaf did Phantom of the Opera. I've seen that too. As a matter of fact, even front row. I've seen Les Mis, Miss Saigon, as well as The Lion King and Jesus Christ Superstar. Then, of course, I've partaken of the greats like Operation Mindcrime, The Wall, Tommy, The Black Parade, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, and even American Idiot. Yes, I know the others in the old and odd realm like Autumn from Smashing Pumpkins, and my all-time favorite that would be, I don't know, Contrarian in the belief of an opera of sorts, but technically Greendale by Neil Young and Crazy Horse would be. Not the kind of opera that we're talking about here yet, but in that idea that they call it a rock opera or an album that is constructed with a theme or a position. Now, let's face it, they're really not opera by definition. I can even get into super dark and demented in the Marilyn Manson realm that you could say Mechanical Animals, Hollywood, and I've listened to maybe the Prokofiev. I can't even remember the titles there. They're just too scary and demented to actually come to terms with in the titles. So what I'm saying is I should be prepared technically for what's coming. And so it arrives. This arrives, okay, in my mail. And of course I was shocked because I kind of was expecting a CD, but hey, pay attention when you're buying stuff. Well, when you're a record buyer like I am, I don't think we do much paying attention. We just, ooh, pretty thing. So it arrives in perfect condition for less dollars than a box meal at Taco Bell. 2 beautiful vinyls in there. I'm going to assume that in the grand scheme of production that there is no other solitary undertaking that is grander than that of Melted Space. But don't quote me on that just yet because, well, let's see how this leads. So where would you think a metal opera sending invites to the demigod, elite musicians of the world, as well as a multitude of vocalists ranging from black metal sirens to gothic doom, growling carnal maestros? What would they be hearkening these bleak, gifted creatures for this mastering process? France. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, right? Same you? Yeah, France? The hell you were thinking France. My first guess would have been Finland. But then again, I was also thinking Italy, right? Yeah, opera. Venice, the birthplace of opera. Or the V in for Vienna, too. I don't know. But I actually saw an opera in Venice where it was actually, opera was created in Venice. Oh, and don't get me started on San Antonio, Texas, because, that should have been the place. Well, on the dark metal side, maybe. Right where the Riverwalk opens in that outdoor theater area. You ever seen that? I don't know. Maybe they took it down. I've been there in years, but it would just be the perfect place. But in actuality, it's really perfectly fitting in France. That is because this is the brainchild and construct of Pierre Lepape. Pierre has a master's degree in classical music, motion picture, songwriting, and scoring to go with his mastering of keyboards and piano. Here's something that elevates this and makes the connection real. Troyes, France. Yes, the absolute lap of medieval luxury area of France, about 100 miles southeast of Paris. It's the architectural match to what he's putting out here. Not exactly in the real true scope of it, but when you think about the playmanship, the orchestration, the beauty of it, and the older type of feel, even though these albums take place in like in a godlike state or an ethereal state, or the last one here is a elemental state. It kind of fits because you've got all this metal, symphonic, doom, and progressive rock musicians from around the globe coming here. This immersion is consequential to the arc of storytelling and the madness of time and lore that spins tales like a dark loom, comparing to the hands of stringed musicians that are kind of plucking and bowing and strumming, fretting madly to move it in the sound's deepest and bleakest expressions that could be imagined. The conveyance is extraordinary on these, and so must the setting be. And for Pierre Lepape, who must have a wine named after him, I would think. Just kidding. This is a place and project of expression that started at the piano and the keyboard, something so either way, peaceful or diabolical, but never black metal dark progressions. But it's translating eventually to that metal expressionato he is at this very moment. And the 5 albums prior associated with Melted Space. So let's go through these. I don't have them all, obviously. They're not easy to get, especially the first one, which I'm not going to talk about until I talk about the second one. Hey, it's the way things go. So From the Past comes in 2012. This is the second album. Unfortunately, I have to start here because the information on the first Melted Space album, There's a Place, from 2009 under it's a Totenez Productions, was not available for audio. What I know is, being the first, the musicians associated with the project, while still in the same expensive position, I would think. I don't know if the City of Prague Philharmonic was involved. My thinking is probably not. These are people that were closest to Pierre Lepape, consisting of 26 singers and musicians from bands like Hereseed, Destinity, The Old Dead Tree, Carnival and Coal, Phasm with a P, Kells, and Otargos. Now, all of which I have no experience with. I, however, did check out Old Dead Trees album from 2003 entitled The Nameless Disease. Now, you can gather from the title, this is a disturbed alternative symphonic metal. It's got Metallica Megadeth riff, heavy drumming, and a back and forth and all of it to give it an incredible bridging experience. From the Past is still under the same production company, Totenez. The double CD symphonic classical dark metal opera is nearly an hour and a half long, featuring 3 books, 3 acts, you'll call it, to the entirety of it all. The album is certainly centered around God beings and the vastness of space, awaiting some brighter bringer of light. It's unhinged in any musical direction, centering in the classical opera setting with some sort of incredible virtuosity and vocal shifting that between the cast, this cast of vocalists, that they use clean, gorgeous vocals to unsettling, unspeakable tones that are the snarl talking intensity. This is where the rest of the music multiverse kind of, they're still not ready to accept this. It's sort of like the occurrence of rap. Rap wasn't, accepted really in the music world. It was kept in its own place, and gradually over time it started to gather a foothold and become a music space, and a very, very large one at that. People like Rick Rubin, who we'll be talking about in a few weeks, are kind of important to this whole thing. But the idea here I want to talk about is this. We don't want to accept it. And I think that's horrible. You don't have to like it, but you can't say it's not music. You can't say it's not vocal. You can't say it's not lyrical. And I'm putting this out here today because this is as close as you're going to get into understanding this headspace by using Melted Space. So there are areas of such lightness, there's ethereal textures and underlayments. And then there's the bombastic, there's crushing crescendos, and even odd gems for a few moments that send us in a completely different frequency hole. A cathedral organ is a nice touch in the ever-shifting progressive soundscape. So this checks some boxes and leaves some scary ones. So it checks the box of progressive rock. It checks the box of progressive metal. It checks the box of symphonic metal, symphonic prog. Even folk in its way, it shifts into that too, based on some of the people that are involved. And then it checks boxes of those vocals, those operatic vocal, but it also goes down into the guttural, unclean vocal. Then we move to Between, which is in 2013. Pierre Lepape decides to shorten the scope, but maintain the style of that shifting progressive metal and classical framework. This production stays in a wheelhouse of the motion picture like soundtrack, but does again bring in those surrounding conflicts and various vocals and musical influxes. The shortness, I think, is a great idea, an attempt to change the accessibility of it. The elongation of tracks can be completely another avenue that people can't get through. It's sort of one of those statements of prog that makes you a true prog lover in some cases, that you'll always, no matter what, no matter how long the song is, you will go through it, you will love it, you will like it, you'll have something to say about it. So they get this easy connection, right? And that construct, it's just huge, really, because what it does is we get music that leans and lends itself to like Queensryche, just as much as it does progressive orchestral patterns of Symphony X, mixed with vocaling styles that give you a match there as well, but also go to alt personalities of Megadeth's Dave Mustaine. And you know, Symphony X is one of the bands that Melted Space opened for, and I think there's a connection there. There's a multitude, again, of musicians attached to Between, and there seems to be succession to the growl vocal being victorious, as the ending track doesn't leave us all in a comfortable orchestrated metal or progressive place, really. So it's one of those odd endings in that album for me. So then in that vocal cast, just to give you an idea, we got Liv Christine with Leaves Eyes, Ashmidi from Melishesh, Emmanuel Levy from Worm Food. Yeah, there's a title. And I think Pape was in that band. Manuel Munoz, The Old Dead Tree. Lucy Beltier. This is kind of a staple now of Melted Space. And then you've got artists in there from Grimora. He was also a keyboardist. And the one is a novelist. That's Sire Cedric. So there's interesting people all the way throughout this. But I think this particular record is the most of the obscured people. Because then we move on to The Great Lie in 2015. Now, Pierre Lepape is deep into his formula by now and extremely comfortable in the band makeup and the orchestrated makeup, which features most of the same musicians and some of the returning familiar vocalists from the last recording, as well as those from the debut. So new vocalists are in bold. They're emboldened to leave an impression, right, in that mix. So I don't know what these people go in like, but they've got to be under some sort of certain pressure to outperform or outdo or be that. This really is a movie, an opera. So it's all about personalities and bombastic deliveries and making your character stand out. In those characters this time around, we got David Vincent from Morbid Angel, Attila from Sun O and Mayhem. You've got Dark Tranquillities, Mikkel Stan, Arjun Lucasen from Arian, not to mention others from that we've already talked about, but also adding in here is Lucasen, right? So Lucasen is in this, providing synth and dulcimer solos in guitar. So it's some of the usual suspects, some of the not so usual suspects. This time around, it's a new production company, and it's a familiar one. Laser's Edge, along with Sensory. So kind of like, getting the Professor of Prague involved. And now I don't believe him to be a favored person of the growl cookie cutter-ish vocal. But they've come to terms with it moving forward. And I think including the Philharmonic of Prague, this sucker comes in at 55 minutes, and it's it's a really, really good, astounding sounding record. The album is a greater ensemble production. Attachment of the sound of the opera and the classical began to kind of take each side to task. It's extremely intense and dramatically centered into progressive black metal and progressive metal. The cast of characters here comes from Dante, Azrael, Loki, to Thanato, to Baba Yaga. No, not John Wick. And the Fates. Now, there's a great band name, right? Baba Yaga and the Fates. Somebody uses that, I won't sue you for using it. Now, having this on a CD makes for the orchestration to be placed within and rolling within it. I'm not quite sure my vinyl experience was the same. Remember, I started out with this. Okay. This came later once I knew I was going to do Unknown Sunday. This is the album I'm referring to, Melted Space, and the Great Lie. Once again, fantastic artwork. You probably can't see it, but everything is there, and the lyrical assignments to everybody and the cast members is all in the booklet. And that, my friends, is one of the things we're going to talk about, because I don't think this would have the success it has had, or the impression it left on me without these kind of things being in the mix. So we get to Darkening Light in 2018. This is where I come in. This was the second Sensory and Laser's Edge collaboration to make this happen. This was the starter, the cheap shit tryout, right? It was actually on vinyl, and that's right, 2025, new to me, back something that was created in 2017, 2018. The elemental, conceptual, progressive metal, and symphonic opera, kind of building upon the prior release and the overall momentum of what Pierre was doing, would be the first black metal progressive symphonic opera to reach my ears, and still to this day is. Obviously, I'm not that long into it because I'm doing Unknown Sunday here. And if Ken's watching, he can attest to when this was purchased in his Backland catalog. So the beautiful artwork and intense liner notes, this is how you do it. So what did I think of it at first? How do you even get into something like this? You've got to rely on the people who made this, that they just didn't make the sound of the album, that they brought in the liner notes too. And even in the vinyl, it's expansive. So this is the gatefold, right? You've got a cool imagery, but the people are pictured in this one, not to mention the entire orchestra is in this area here from Prague. And these are all the lyrical lines, spoken, sang, guttural or otherwise, by the cast, which is over here. And, of course, the musicians. All right? And I believe Lepep's brother, maybe, or somebody from his family is in there also in guitar solo. But I'll get to that. It's great to know that the expense of the recording process did not cheapen when they went to press. They did a really nice job. I don't know, when you hear Ken Golden and what he does and how he does things and all the people associated with it, I think he goes that extra mile. The Darkening Light is told systematically of the struggle of the elements against or for man, as well as the interlacing of lies, life, and death. Yes, they are actual characters in this. And you can follow along with the understanding of each position that each has at the certain times in every song, as well as they're delivering in their voice, whether that be the voice of an angel or deity, or the snarl, growl, dirty vocal of something sinister. As it turns out in this record, the rock voice, Jeff Scott Soto, that's right, the guitarist and vocalist with such bands as Trans-Siberian Orchestra, Sons of Apollo, Journey, Journey, as well as he was in the fictional band in the movie Rockstar with Zakk Wylde, Jeff Pilson, who was in Dokken and Foreigner, as well as, yes, the man Jason Bonham. If you don't know who he is, I can't help you. So he was listed as man. I think it's a great choice. It's just a standard rock vocal. He's a great rock vocalist. Strong, but not overbearing, not whiny. Just man, he sounds like man, right? That's along with, of course, other guests, and again, the City of Prague Philharmonic Orchestra. I do not think there's anyone at this level in this very tiny genre and space other than the great Pierre Lepage. If there is someone that's accomplished in this same fashion, and I'm talking about the opera side of this too, then let me know, because I do not know of anyone in this regard. Even Pierre's other side projects are not like this. They're close. They still carry the metal, the black metal, the progressiveness, and those guttural vocals or something in that vein within it. But if there is someone, I'd like somebody to let me know. I'm sure there are music multiverse travelers that can find something close, maybe a name drop. Pierre likes his metal and in a lot of forms. While there are similarities in the thrash or the metal aspect, there's always a progressive envelope pushing element to every project. And of course, those vocal changes of that of Embryonic Cells, which is one of his bands. Of course, the band that might have been the catalyst for the dark metal pursuits started back in 1995, but he wasn't in this band. The band is called Seth, which was completely in French for most albums except for the Howling Spirit, which came out. Pierre Lepage joined them on the 2019 album Les Blessures de l'âme, and that's 20 ans de blasphème. Now, 20 would be, what's the word for 20 in French? Vente? Boy, my French got bad. Anyway, that was right after Melted Space's last record, this one here. So it's black metal shred and definitely unclean vocal atmosphere. The ear space it took to get here is really this particular Unknown Sunday's true reason. In the music multiverse, it's trial and tribulation. But it's like the time you didn't want to try Brussels sprouts. You have to try them. And then you tried them, and let's say they just weren't prepared well. Is that the Brussels sprouts' fault? I'd like to think it isn't. It's like my mother with the salmon. She didn't have it, didn't like it because it wasn't prepared right. At once I prepared it the way it should, it didn't taste like lemon. So here we are. There's this call out against the vocals that are unclean. It's almost not even mutterable or even discernible as singing, so to speak. I think a lot of people don't believe this is music. They don't think it's singing, and it has no value. But in this symphonic instance, this operatic dialogue and expansiveness, I have to say I'm a fan of. I understand it. And you should too, honestly. If you've gone to the opera, there are those that sing higher and there are those that sing lower. All right? There are those that reach certain plateaus and there are those that go way below those. And that is to discern and differentiate between the characters, especially on a stage. But that works in music too. But where it also works, and where I'm going to make my point, is movies. Would you want Gollum to sound like Michael Bublé? If a Wookiee had an album, if the music was great enough, could he hold an interesting place in your music listening experience? I know some of you Star Wars friends would all love that. Isn't the vocal appropriate to Wayne Static's delivery in Static X for his industrial groove? Sure it is. Can't have anybody else singing that but him or someone mimicking him or coming close to it. I think it's the guy from Dope now. Did we like Ozzy at first? Or even at last? It's a tough vocal. Were we smitten with Geddy Lee? Maybe Nick Cave, Bob Dylan, Tom Petty, or into the closer to coarser vocal sides or screaming like vocals of Trent Reznor, Jonathan Davis of Korn. Again, I'll mention opus Michael, it's Mikkel, right? Probably, yeah. Mikkel Eckerfeld, who has the range to do more than both. As well as the most recent of the beloved would be Corey Taylor. I'm saying this has a place. Melted Space might be your best avenue to try to understand and get yourself there. I do keep it dark on every other Thursday. And sometimes it goes to this arena of that vocal. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I can understand it. Sometimes I can't. I will tell you this, though. The marketplace for this is growing like rap did. And it has a very, very interesting place in the music multiverse. Although be it probably a dark one. I'd like to know your comments. Did you know Melted Space? Do you have the vinyl? Oh, the one thing I didn't mention. The vinyl is different, I think. I don't know because I do not have the CD of this particular record, this Darkening Light. I believe the orchestrated parts, if you'll see the back, they are on a separate side of the vinyl. Now, I learned from my friend Ken Golden that time is a problem on record, and you want to get the best sound out of it, right? So, by pressing, they put this lovely instrumentals as their own. I don't think that's what happened here. I think the instrumentals are wound into this as if you're watching the opera, as if it's coming together. I can't say that I'm a fan of this idea. I would have rather somehow it was broken up differently, and the instrumentals that have to do with the orchestration were actually part of the recording. Now, the vinyl I was listening to, my machine is not that great, so I won't speak to it any further. But I just note that, and if Ken Golden or anyone from Sensory can let me know how that transpired, I would love to know. Because I believe when I listened to those other albums, the orchestration was all in between, and that one, it didn't feel like it was to me. Let me know what you're thinking. Comments. Did you go down the other rabbit holes of Seth or anyone else that within that? I mean, Dark Tranquility, Soil Work. There's tons and tons of artistry woven into these, from Nemec all the way to the Old Dead Tree, which I would recommend. There's wild ones too, like Vision of Atlantis and more. So I think this is a cool, interesting, unknown Sunday. We're on the web at beyondyourradio.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, of course, articles, videos, podcasts. It's all about albums, bands, artists, anything we can get our hands on. Anything. Go Beyond Your Radio with us, a real music appreciation channel. I'll see you next week where we're going to talk about Phoenix. Thanks for watching and happy listening.